Good day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and watching this uh, little tutorial on gesture drawing. My plan is to go and delve into books that I think are really good for figure drawing, uh, people that want to get into doing figure drawing or even getting better at figure drawing. Um, I've purchased a few books that go into the subject, and I've got a select few that I think stand out the most. First, we are going to look into figure drawing design and invention by Michael Hampton. And we're going to go into his section on gesture drawing, because I think when you do any course on on figure drawing, gesture is always one of the introductory sort of things that comes up when you want to learn about figure drawing. He's got several subjects under the head of gesture drawing. Yeah, I did a few other videos that I edited on, I'd draw things and then put it on a video editing program like DaVinci, and use an avatar to speak over it. I made a script, but it's didn't feel as natural as being able to teach or show someone firsthand or without the filter of editing, because sometimes you spend so long editing something and then you forget one thing and then you have to rearrange everything. So it's a bit of a hassle. This way, I can just go with the flow, and I'll follow along with what he's got in his first chapter on gesture drawing. And if there's any questions or comments, feedback, anything that I've got totally wrong, feel free to leave a comment, and maybe leave me an email, or maybe later I'll put on my contact on Instagram and you can message me on there, and hopefully I'll be able to help you out. But we'll get on with it. Michael Hampton, his book it's called Figure Drawing Design and Invention. And the first part in his contents of gesture drawing is referring to the 8 parts of the body. So that would be the spine, the pelvis, the head's up here, spine, pelvis, rib cage, and 2 arms and 2 legs. So those are the 8 parts of the body that we convey when we're doing a figure drawing. Now, with those 8 parts, he's saying that you could use gesture to define each or give rhythm to each element here. And with those 8 parts, you can create a story or attitude about the person that you're trying to capture. Other components, he says, within the under the umbrella of gesture is story and composition, which we just sort of mentioned then. Proportion, so getting to the figure to look believable, having the right proportion, also assist the viewer in, seeing the figure and going, yeah, that looks right. Weight and balance, making sure that, I guess that could go under composition as well. So if you want to convey the correct weight and balance, you just make sure that the person that you're drawing seems to be standing upright, not sort of tilting about to fall over. And the last component is anatomy. And he probably will talk about landmarks in that section there, because it could be a bit too early to go in depth into anatomy. Within this part about 8 parts of the body, he also goes into mentioning these CSI lines. I don't know if you've heard of these before, but you can define gesture or any figure only by using these lines here, CSI. So I usually use the straight to connect two parts. But we'll get into that a bit later on. CSI is important to remember. Try not to use shaky lines like, the letter zigzag, I don't know. Or you wouldn't be doing something like this. If you're going to convey the figure, remember to try and only use CSI. Maybe a good exercise is to do gesture drawing or convey an image of a figure that you just only use C curves, and then maybe another one just using S curves, and one maybe, actually I wouldn't use the I, I'll just use C and S curves. Now, yeah, okay, we were talking about form and balance. I'll get into this here. So the body naturally, when you're standing, has some sort of balance especially in the way that the skeleton is designed. So if you have a side view, and I've got the head here, I'll represent it with a cube. You got the neck. Sorry, I've got the head here, the neck, the rib cage, the abdomen, and the pelvis. You've got the femur, and then the tibia and fibula, and then the feet. So the foot should be right underneath the head. And here you'll see a rhythm of the body, a natural rhythm. You've got the head, the rib cage, going into the abdomen, then onto the rump, the thigh muscle, and then the calf, and then that'll flow into the feet. But do you see how you don't have something like a snowman to build up your figure? You've got a rhythm where you've got this flowing into the back, this bit flowing into here, this bit flowing into here, this flowing, it's all sort of opposing. Whereas this, it looks asymmetrical and unnatural. Whereas this one looks more natural. Now let's see, he's got an image from the back. So if you've got the head, spine, the ribs, spine continues, probably got the sacrum here, and the pelvis, the femur, back of the knees, and then tibia fibula. So there's another piece of rhythm within the body if you're looking at it from the back. But I think you get a better sense of rhythm when you're looking at it from the side here, not so much at the back. But if you were to squeeze these parts down, see, and squash them down like an accordion, it'd make like a spring that would pop right up. It's like, so that's, I guess, what us humans were born to do, move and jump. So we're like a natural spring, there's a coiled spring just ready to bounce. So yeah, again with these rhythms, you can see, I'll change the color. It's almost like a skier going down a mountain or water going down a waterfall. It'll trickle down from there into here and then here and here. And if you continue practicing gesture drawing, you'll naturally pick up where these rhythms are in the body, no matter what sort of angle you're looking at the figure from. And look at that. It was all done with C curves. So moving on, it goes into repetition and timing. I can't remember what it was about timing, but repetition, I'd say, is, let's say for instance, I'll find a figure to reference from one of these older Renaissance figure drawings. Let's see what comes up. Say we do this one, for instance. Hopefully you can see that. Must be Atlas or some sort of old god. Now, I'll look for the rhythm on this. So if I usually tend to start with the rib cage. And one thing that's important is don't go for accuracy, go for rhythms. So I'm looking for the rhythm from the back into the pelvis, and it makes like a shape like that. I'm looking for the center line, which is where in between the sternum, that's the middle part of your rib cage at the front, to the belly button, to your crotch. And I use these, he mentions this as well. He mentions using wrapping lines to give the figure a sense of form. So you see that quick gesture or rhythm I did of his torso, give the shape a sense of form, so it looks a bit more 3D-ish. And then add those center lines. Do it in whichever order you feel like. I tend to get the center line first and then put the wrapping lines. But and also you can see that this wrapping line doesn't look right. It looks right when he's looking down. So draw through it, and that gives you a sense of you looking down into his, from the top into his rib cage. And from here, I'm going to do a rhythm for his legs. I'll put a base line there for his foot. I'm drawing through, and I'll put a base of his left foot there. And here's his arm. And see, I'm using very flowy lines. Flowy. And I've left his head till last. So his head will come out the rib cage like that. So he's burden there. He's carrying the weight of the earth. Okay, so what is the repetition and timing that Mark Hampton talks about? I think instead of just using a single line here and here, I like I've heard it in another book before. I'm trying to remember which one. Maybe like Matesi, where wherever there's a place where there's some tension or an extreme edge of the rhythm, so here and then here, you can use several lines to bring you down and into the next heavy bend. So remember this, remember when we had the figure, sorry, his head should be loud. Remember when we had the figures, how it balances from side on, and we had the rhythms going, and that's a stomach. Oops. We had those rhythms, and then you had like the someone skiing down a mountain and hitting the edges here, or it's water trickling down a waterfall. What we've got for this guy on our left, geez, I need a bigger better eraser. Oh, too big. Okay, enough of that. So you've got a rhythm here with his head, which goes into the back, and then it goes into the knee, and down the leg, back to the heel. You see this rhythm? That's how I'm trying to represent the rhythm of this figure like that. And where you hit these spots, maybe I'm wrong, but I've seen it in Michael Matesi's book on force. You can use several lines to emphasize movement into another, from one rhythm into another. So into that knee, down, the heel, and out. And what else will help us not only see rhythm but form is to use the wrapping lines that I was talking about before. So wrapping the rib cage, you can wrap the leg. You can do this as an exercise, just wrapping figures that you see, and that will help you get a sense of how to depict form. The head, we're looking down at it. So if you're looking down at something, if I'm representing it as a tube, then my curve goes down. If I'm looking up at something, the tube's going away from us, the curve goes up. So this torso has two different orientations of form. So we've essentially got the pelvis and the rib cage. The rib cage, we're looking down at it, and the pelvis, we're kind of looking down at it, but it's tilted up. So do you see, if I put it like as a square, you should do this as an exercise also. There's bunches of exercises you can do to get better, but these ones are pretty important. So if I represented that rib cage as a cube, you're looking down at it, and that's my wrapping lines for it. I'm looking at this. Oh, sorry. Yep, that's right. Well, that's the crotch. I'm looking down at that pelvis. Okay. So yeah, that's that bit about repetition. Just wherever you have those sort of peaks of the bend in rhythm is where you can add like nice little flow lines leading into the next um rhythm curve that you see. He's got a bunch of 1 minute gesture drawings, which you really need to do a whole lot of them. With gesture drawing, if you do tons and tons, hundreds and thousands of them or whatever, you'll be able to sense the natural rhythms of the body. So what do I mean here? Like, if you look at a limb, like a leg, leg, you do the drawing side sequel. I have to use these as references because I don't know if Da Vinci or Michelangelo will be able to sue me. But that's fine saying figure drawing, classical, Renaissance, whatever. But let's try Pontormo. He's a good classical figure drawing drawer, painter. Okay, so we've got this wall. Not too many. I'll try that one. It's very light, but let's see how it looks. Oops. Where is it? Can't find it anymore. Oh, here's one. All right, so I'll erase this. And we're gonna just focus on his left leg, the right leg we're looking at. Now this is the flow of the leg, and that's the foot, the base of the foot. So if I start, say, skiing down this hill, I've got the rhythm here, and then it goes to the other side of his calf. This will go into his ankle, and then his outer foot. And then if I close it all off, I'll use a straight there because I want to emphasize his tibia. I'll give it a wrapping line. There's a sense of form. This is the knee. At joints, I tend to use like heavy edges just to emphasize the point of it being a joint, a strong joint, which the knee is in most people. And that is his leg. It doesn't look exactly the same, but I've got to mention here that we're not trained to be hardcore classical artists. We want to be able to invent and design the figure, like much like what it says in the title of the Michael Hampton book. You want to use the figure that you're looking at as a reference. So we're not doing an exact copy. You're going to reinterpret it in the way that you conceive the rhythm of what you're looking at. So someone else might see rhythms a different way than you would. So if you gave them the same figure, I would expect that two people interpret it in different ways, which is a good thing. So that's the figure here. Sorry, the leg. So this is the rhythm I followed from one side to the other, and then it catches on. And then there, see how it doesn't go like this. They flow into each other, like pick up from where the other one leaves off. See, this one is more cohesive. This one is more separated. And then again, with the timing or repetition, that's a peak of a rhythm I saw. It's the outside of the knee, which is another rhythm peak, I'll call it. And see how I've emphasized it with several lines. So yeah, that's, if you do tons of these studies of limbs and bodies, you're going to find the rhythm within the elements of the body that it'll just become second nature, and then you'll be able to do it off the top of your head, which is awesome. Okay, wrapping lines. We just went into that, but I guess we'll go over it again for clarification. If I look at another figure, Pontoma figure drawing, I don't know if you'll be able to see this too well. You should be able to. And I'm sorry, guys, this is the first time I've done a video like this. Hopefully the setup, I can make this image a bit bigger for you next time. But this is still a work in progress, or a research in progress. I'm going to find out how to make it a lot more presentable for you guys and gals. Now, let's work from the beginning on this figure. I'm working on the trunk, the pelvis, the rib cage into the pelvis, and I'm representing it with this sort of beam looking shape. Matesi says you can represent it with something like a S or an A or a C. So this, I think, looks more like a C. I'll find the center lines. So the center is, like I said before, center of your rib cage. This is where the neck comes out, and you've got your belly button. Where's your belly button? It's sort of hidden, but that's in between the pelvis and the rib cage. So if we follow that center line, we get to the crotch of the pelvis. Okay, now I'll follow this rhythm. I see a peak here, and I'll go straight into the back, and then I'll follow it, continue it down into the figure's left knee, into the back of the calf, and from the back of the calf, see, I'm not even looking too much at the figure, which maybe I should be a little bit. It goes into his foot. That's the rhythm there. The rhythm of the other foot, I can't really see it too well, but it looks like it's going out. I think he's done two versions of one foot, one leg, but I'll make this one go out. So there's a rhythm there into here, from the knee into the back of the calf, and then that makes up his foot there. The front of the lower leg, or your shin bone, I tend to represent it with that eye, or the CSI. I tend to use the eye to emphasize that sharp shin bone there. And the knees, I use a straighter line too. Okay, let's keep going with this. The arm is one big flow. Down here, he's carrying a kid, and his hands are around his knee. I've got to emphasize again, we're not drawing little digits and fingers. Just represent the hand, how you feel summarizes it well for now. With the hand, I mainly represent the back of the palm and the back of the hand with a mini sort of square, like a rounded off square. And depending on the angle, you can see the sides of it. And that connects to the wrist, which I'd represent with a little circle like that. And that goes into that square I was talking about. Now, the other arm, you can't really see it because it's hidden behind that kid's head. But see how simple this arm is? It's just two flowing lines. And then I'll finish it off with the head. Now, let's go into the rhythm again before we tackle those wrapping lines. I'll get rid of this here. Just a second. And that's a bit better. So I'll use another color. The rhythm here, let's say we start from the top of the head, from the head. I could have made that tilt a bit more so it flows into the back better. We've got repeating lines here with the arms, but we've got the front of the chest, which goes into the back there, which flows into the legs. Either leg you can use. From that, flows down into the calf. This one, then into that way, that direction. The back of the calf, and then the top of the foot. This one went back of the calf to the top of the foot. And then you can close it off. But instead of closing it off, let's just try those wrapping lines. So I'll use another color, maybe green. Okay, so this head is looking up, so let's exaggerate it looking up, so we curve it up even more. The chest is facing down, so we'll wrap it, the form lines facing down, the curves facing down. The pelvis is kind of facing us, but slightly has an angle like this, so we'll represent it with those wrapping lines. The legs are easy enough. If you represent the top of the leg as a tube, it would be wrapping like that. Now, this other leg is going back. So if you represent that as a tube, it would kind of be going like this. And so you wrap the lines around it accordingly. The foot is kind of like a wedge. You can represent it as a triangular wedge. And you can use the curvy lines on it because, yeah, that makes sure to show that we're dealing with organic figures here. Now that's the wrapping of lines he's talking about. So if you ever don't know which way to wrap the lines, there's a technique that Steve Houston mentioned once when I watched one of his tutorials, is to use the top of your pencil or pen and orientate the pen to go in the same direction as the limb or the form that you're looking at. And then whatever way this band curves around the pencil or pen is the way you should represent the band on the form you're looking at. So this is the top of the pen. The band is going that way. And say you were orientating it to look at a leg that was you looked at, and if you copied it with the pen or pencil, the band will be going around the leg like that. I hope that makes sense. Um, Now, yeah, he mentions that these wrapping lines are like rubber bands that you put around the form. So you could see these forms here that I used before. You could just, as an exercise, make up wrapping lines around them. Just this is a good habit to get into. So you know that you're dealing with a dimensional figure, not something flat, not something flat like that. We're dealing with an organic shape with 3 dimensions. Yeah, so he continues with these, what he calls it, wrapping lines are volumetric contours. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Volumetric contours. And when you're doing these figures, you see how, let's do that contour again. But, you know, when you're drawing the torso, you can even not look at the paper or the pad you're drawing on, just get loose and let it go. And then I've got that shape there, which is sort of similar. Okay, I'll get into the wrapping line, just quick wrapping lines for the torso there. The center lines. And then the long axis. This is what Steve Houston talks about, drawing the long axis first. So I'm drawing the longest side of that leg, whereas this is the shorter side. And usually draw the long side with the long flowing C or S curve, and then the inside generally makes it a bit more sharper and straighter, I guess. So okay, just quickly I'll throw in an arm there. What a piece to put into an exhibition, but I'm just scribbling these figures to get a point across. Anyway, the habit I would like you to get into is to, after you've done this rhythm sketch or gestural sketch, find where those heavy rhythms are and use these repeater lines to emphasize the rhythm. And this is a stronger shoulder that's being pushed down by gravity. So I'll emphasize that. I need a bit of a eraser. Let's try this one. Okay. My point was, once you've done these rhythm lines, let's start making forms of the different elements. So the head, if you were to represent it as a tube, we're sort of looking, he's looking sort of up. So I should have made it look like that. With the wrapping line and a center line. So the center and the wrapping line just to show that the form is up. The rib cage, wrapping lines again. This is the exercise you should be doing as well on top of your gesture drawing, just to get into the habit of defining forms. So if we had that form there of the upper leg, the knee tends to be a short tube, and I'm looking down at it, so I'll draw the curves down. This calf or lower leg is a tapering kind of tube. So I'll send it out at the bottom, and I'll add the wrapping lines to that. So get into that habit. Also, if you don't like tubes, see if you can represent the different elements with, using a different shape. Like, so the head as a cube, maybe the rib cage as a cube, the pelvis as a cube. And you're probably wondering, how do I identify the cube under all that skin and muscle? That's okay. We'll get into it soon enough. I think he gets into it in this chapter, but if not, we'll tackle it. Don't worry. The upper leg as a cube. If you can just do this as an exercise, you really will be going a step ahead, or step up above the rest, because you're enforcing that sense of form into your mind. This is how I think there's many Renaissance painters would depict the figures in their paintings before they painted them as cubes, as like geometric shapes. I think I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but if I remember, maybe Poussin, it could have been. I'll have a look, and you can have a look at how these old masters used to depict the figures. I think it was Poussin, but I can't find any examples of the geometric shapes that he would use. Is this one? Not so much, but these are very nice gestural sketches. You know, he's studied gesture and rhythm thousands of times to be able to put these muscles and contours in exactly the right spots. I'll see if square comes off. Squarish. Drawing squarish. No, can't find it. I'll find an example in the future, don't worry. Okay, now. Okay, here he goes into passive and active anatomy. Now, he's going through this waterfall that we were talking about before on passive and active anatomy. Also, well, let's look at the waterfall here. It goes into the back there, into the front of the pelvis, in the back, the rump into the thigh there, the front of the knee, the back of the calf, and the foot. Actually, I'm going into this leg here. So what are we talking about? Passive and active. So let's say, for instance, we've got this image here. I'll look at this guy that's got his hand on the other guy's head, and let's go through the passive and active sides that Michael is referring to. But I want to use the way I learned it from Steve Houston. So let's get the gesture down. He's leaning forward, and that pelvis is back, leaning or being forced back. Also, I think it's probably Matesi talks about verbalizing everything that you see using verbs or descriptive words to sort of define what the figure is doing. And for some reason it'll help you force the movement or the rhythm that you're drawing, or the rhythm of the figure that you're drawing. So here, this looks like an about to pose that he was talking about. He talks about to poses. I think this is later on in the chapter, but it's a pose of action where he's about to do something. So it looks like he's about to smack this guy in the head with a stick. Now, I'll just did a quick gestural sketch there. Can't get carried away. I'm just trying to talk about one point, which is about the passive and an active side. So the passive side, there's always a side that is a long axis, which Steve Houston refers to as a passive side. And then inside, on the other side of it, to create the form, is an active side, a side that's bent. So think of an accordion like this. This would be the passive side, and this would be the compressed active side, if this was an accordion. Okay, so let's start with the torso. The passive side is this long axis of the front to his crotch, and then the active side is the compressed, seemingly compressed side. That is the his back. You got his trap there, and then let's go up into his arm. His arm, that would be, the whole arm is active, but there's always got to be a passive and active side that we're representing. So the passive is the long axis, and the active side is this compressed side that he's got, he's bending at the elbow inside. It's hard to tell here, but the passive side is the long axis. This, I guess, is a bit of each, with equal parts of passive and active. So I've got this deltoid, it's going into his bicep. He's got the top of his forearm, which is one of these extensors, which is flexed because he's bringing that hand up. And then see how this, I'm not going to put it like, I'm not going to make it look like that. I want to bring the forearm to be off symmetry a bit. So instead of this, like a snowman, I've got that flowing into there. You see? Okay. Maybe I can show you up here. Forearm, and then his extensor. So that is represented not like this, like a snowman. That, and then that. See how they're offset? That's rhythm. This is not rhythm, because there's movement. This is going somewhere. This is just bouncing off the walls like a crazy man. Okay, let's see. The passive side of the leg is the long axis, longest the longest axis, and then the active side is where the bend is. I imagine his foot sort of pointing out a bit. And then let's lastly do the other leg, the long axis. I don't know what's doing that funny shade thing. Bang. The movement goes into the heel, and then the heel bends back like that to the bottom of the foot. So that's the passive side. The active side, not so much of a bend, but I would say that's the shorter axis, the active side. Okay, so that's what he says about passive and active. So remember the longest axis is passive, and short axis is active. And remember, the short axis is like what we said in the accordion, is all compressed or bent, whereas the long passive axis is graceful, and the longer line that you'd be using to represent that axis. Now, okay, he's getting into the spine now, and I guess I'll start that in the next episode. We're still on this first chapter, but it's already quite a bit to digest at the moment. But from this lesson, what have we got? We've understood the representing the figure with the 8 parts of the body. So the head, spine, arms, pelvis, rib cage, and legs. We understand that there's a balance that the body naturally represents, with, especially with we saw the side-on figure. And we talked about gesture being the delivering of a story, maybe through composition. You're telling the attitude of the person. Okay, also proportion. That's part of what he calls under the umbrella gesture, but I'd say proportion. Don't focus too much on proportion for now. Just focus on rhythm and getting that rhythm flowing down the figure. Proportion, make sure it looks right to you. If it doesn't, start again. But we'll work on that later. Weight and balance, we talked a bit about that. So with weight, I would say the parts of the body that you see you bend the most, add those repetition lines that he was talking about. So say I've done a torso like this, it's bending there, add some weight and repetition there, and then it flows to here. Maybe the what would I say? It's maybe the lower rib into the pelvis. So you've got this water trickling down from here to here, bouncing off, flowing. It would flow off maybe the back of the thigh into a knee. We talked about representing the figure with CSI lines. maybe practice the figure just using C lines. I've never tried it, but any practice doesn't hurt. We talked about symmetry and asymmetry a little bit. So here is the example. We're not going to represent the figure with rhythms going symmetrically like that. There's no flow. This has flow. So that's one rhythm going into another rhythm, going down here. And you can do an exercise or just doodle around when you're not doing anything. Just do like rhythm lines. And then this could be like a track for the skier going downhill or hitting the flags, you know? Whereas again, here, there's no rhythm. It's just flat. This has rhythm. It's going somewhere. There's movement. He mentions, again, to wrap the lines, wrap form. So the most important shapes I would get you to practice is the cube and a tube, even a sphere if you want. But we're going to wrap the forms that we see on our figure. So here, again, in this example, use the wrapping lines to give it form. You can even make weird organic shapes and just practice wrapping, giving it a center line, and putting wrapping lines on this form. You can add to it. Put a cube underneath it, I don't know. Then just put some wrapping lines there. And then connect them. Bang. Bang. You get carried away doing this. But yeah, it's a good exercise just to convey form. Now, what else? Getting carried away there. Talks about, the passive. We talked about, erase noise. We talked about the passive and active. I just wrote notes on it before. The long axis is passive and the short axis is active. And that's all we will do for today. Again, this is the first time I've done this sort of thing, so any feedback would be good. Even technical feedback, if the mic is too loud, if I should be wearing makeup, or if you don't understand me, if you need subtitles, and even if I've explained something wrong and you've got better analogies, then just give me feedback on that. I'll put this up on YouTube, and yeah, hopefully when I edit this video, I'll add a place you can contact me on. But for now, I'd practice a lot of those 1-minute gesture drawings. There's a site called Quick Poses where you can get timed poses, choose 60-second ones. Even when you get confident, choose 30-second ones. But what we're trying to do with the exercise is push your understanding of where you find movement and rhythm in the figure. And if you get so good at that, it'll be a really good stepping stone into learning anatomy, because once you learn anatomy, you'll see that the figure is basically just muscles and rhythm, bones and muscles, just flesh. We're like a rhythm machine. So if you're able to capture rhythm, following the rules or the steps we went through today, that's going to give you a real good head start into becoming a better figure drawer. So with that, take care and keep practicing.